We begin the day with what could be the ultimate TikTok challenge that TikTok will probably lose. Today, TikTok's CEO went to Washington to tell lawmakers that they have nothing to fear from his social media platform that almost half of all Americans now use. The fact that TikTok is owned by a Chinese company, that at the end of the day, a company that answers to the Chinese Communist Party, well, that is not relevant inside the U.S. That was the CEO's position, and it was the position that lawmakers shot down one by one. Either TikTok is sold, which the Chinese government says is a non-starter, or Congress may just ban TikTok altogether. We have more now on today's TikTok troubles from Capitol Hill.
Hey everyone, it's Joe here. I'm the CEO of TikTok. Today, I'm super excited to announce
more at ease on the app than defending it. CEO Shou Zi-Chew faced a hostile grilling before a congressional committee. Lawmakers called the app a threat to ordinary Americans and to national security.
And the Chinese Communist Party is able to use this as a tool to manipulate America as a whole. We do not trust TikTok will ever embrace American values. Values for freedom, human rights, and innovation. TikTok has repeatedly chosen the path for more control, more surveillance, and more manipulation. Your platform should be banned.
What lawmakers really wanted to know was how close the Chinese government is to TikTok's management, and Shou repeatedly denied that he was under pressure from Beijing.
Congressman, since I've been CEO of this company, I've not had any discussions with Chinese government officials.
The app is owned by the Chinese company ByteDance. Critics say that Beijing could force TikTok to hand over information on millions of Americans, something that TikTok denies.
Congressman, I have seen no evidence that the Chinese government has access to that data. They have never asked us. We have not provided.
Well, you know what?
I
find that actually preposterous.
I have looked in. I have seen no evidence of this happening. And in order to assure everybody here and all our users, our commitment is to move the data into the United States to be stored on American soil by an American company, overseen by American personnel. So the risk will be similar to any government going to an American company asking for data.
Moving U.S. user data to the U.S. is part of Project Texas, a plan that TikTok says will keep the data out of China's reach. But lawmakers seem unconvinced by Shou's reassurances. If it does get banned, 150 million users in the U.S. would lose access to the short video app. Winning over the U.S. government is proving harder than getting more Americans on TikTok.
Well, I'm joined now by Lindsay Gorman. She is head of technology and the geopolitics team at the nonprofit organization, the Alliance for Securing Democracy, and she joins me from Washington, D.C. It's good to have you with us tonight. Let's just talk about what we saw happen in that room today. The CEO of TikTok, he was grilled hard and heavy. The impression I got was that he read the room completely wrong and that this was a PR disaster for him. How did you see it?
I think that's exactly right. I think we saw him receive one of the frostiest receptions from U.S. Congress that we have seen in years. And this was a committee that was extraordinarily well prepared to ask the hard-hitting questions, both about TikTok's Chinese ownership, and that included very detailed questions about financial ties, Shou-Chew's own compensation and whether that comes from TikTok's Chinese parent company ByteDance, the compensation of employees, his own relationship with ByteDance employees and members of the Chinese Communist Party. So really detailed questions on TikTok's Chinese ties, and also really detailed questions on the technology itself. You know, we heard lawmakers talk about bytecode and about neural network architectures and artificial intelligence, and that's pretty unprecedented for the U.S. Congress, which 5 years ago, when they were grilling Mark Zuckerberg, had absolutely no clue what they were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it really was. It's an about face. It's like the roles were reversed today when you compare it to how it was when Zuckerberg was sitting there and talking to members of Congress. We know that lawmakers now are not happy with social media platforms in general, but TikTok It's special because it also happens to be Chinese-owned. The Chinese Communist Party has access, it could have access to 150 million U.S. hearts and minds. That's what the lawmakers said. Talk to me about this danger that members of Congress were talking about today.
I think that's a great way of putting it. And there are really two real dangers that members of Congress have seized upon. The first centers around sort of the more narrow threat of data privacy and data security. The idea that all social media platforms, including TikTok in particular, collect massive amounts of data to build these user profiles. And TikTok in particular, the genius of the app's algorithm is that it can really understand what you want to watch, what you like, what you dislike. And that can translate into a voter profile and a profile for influence. So the data piece of it is of high concern, and that's what this Project Texas was designed to alleviate. But then the other concern, the second concern, which is almost a bigger one, is that the social media platforms and the algorithms that they use are constantly making decisions second by second, minute by minute, on what content we see and when and why. And the idea that the Chinese Communist Party could influence that and upregulate content that they want Americans to see and downregulate content such as on Taiwan or on Chinese activists that they don't want Americans to see, that's where the real national security issues come in that make TikTok distinct from the social media platforms that we're used to that are based in democratic countries.
Yeah, and lawmakers today, they took TikTok to task for not doing what it promises when it comes to content moderation. I want you to take a listen to what Congresswoman Kat Cammack from Florida said after she shared a threat that was posted on TikTok against the committee chairwoman, and that threat, by the way, that is still posted on TikTok today. Take a listen.
And you expect us to believe that you are capable of maintaining the data security, privacy, and security of 150 million Americans? You damn well know that you cannot protect the data and security of this committee or the 150 million users of your app, because it is an extension of the CCP. And with that, I yield back.
Now, she brought in the Chinese Communist Party, but if we took that out, she could have easily been talking about Facebook or Twitter, right? They've had serious issues when it comes to content moderation themselves.
Yeah, certainly Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all these platforms are sorely in need of stronger oversight when it either involving the data that the Congresswoman was talking about or content moderation. And this has been sort of a thorn in Washington's side for the better part of the last 5 years. And we've really seen very little movement so far on this broader tech platform regulation. But I think there's a real chance now that the platform in question has this extra threat of being based in China and ultimately potentially beholden to the Chinese Communist Party. I think we're now able to see these broader tech regulation ideas such as content moderation, such as data privacy in a new light that may make lawmakers more willing to consider some of these guardrails against the massive loopholes that we have in our technology ecosystem. And
I think you would agree with me that lawmakers are kind of late to the party here when it comes to holding social media responsible and accountable, particularly for misinformation on their platforms. I mean, they're correct when they say this is dangerous, perhaps on TikTok because it's coming from a foreign power. But what about Facebook? What about the last U.S. election, for example, and the 2016 election? We know that Facebook was used by Russia. U.S. intelligence has told us that they used Facebook to try to manipulate the election. Where was the fury from Congress over that?
You're absolutely right. These issues of foreign influence and foreign interference in U.S. democracy and elections are not new. But I think there was fury over Facebook's role in the 2016 election, including from lawmakers, maybe not as uniform as we saw today, but this has been something that lawmakers have been hammering on about social media platforms for years now. And I think the question is, why haven't we seen more action beyond just words? Because this is clearly something that needs to be addressed. But I think, one thing in the United States, we have this Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which provides a very strong liability shield, particularly on content for these social media platforms. And actually, the same committee that grilled the TikTok CEO today is currently looking into precisely that provision and asking questions about whether we need to reform that act and make any changes to that liability shield. It's something the Supreme Court took up recently. So I think the conversation is certainly not done on content moderation and Section 230 when it comes to the broader tech regulation.
And Liz, let me ask you about that before we run out of time. These two things, I mean, what do you see happening? Do you think that TikTok will be banned in the United States? And do you think TikTok is the company that is going to push Congress to change this Section 230 and, hold these platforms responsible, make them liable for the content that's on their platforms?
I do think that this is finally the nail in the coffin when it comes to social media platforms before real regulation becomes part of our legal code. And the reason it's been clear today is that even the Republican chair of the committee today called for federal privacy legislation, something that's been a fact of life in Europe for years now, and the United States has flagged on.
Yeah, it's true. I heard him say that, and it struck me too. That's what the Europeans have been calling for years. We have that here, and now you have these U.S. lawmakers who are on board, and perhaps it took a Chinese company to bring them there. Lindsay Gorman, head of technology and the head of technology and the geopolitics team at the nonprofit organization, the Alliance for Securing Democracy. We appreciate your time and your insights tonight. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.